Hey, good morning, everyone. We're going to start off with some special news from our friend here, Sean Spicer, who did something impressive. I know because I've done it myself, and it's a lot of work. So I'm going to kick it to Sean. Let's put up
Thank you, Rachel. I feel like this is the Golden Globes moment. I am pleased to announce my fifth book, Trump 2.0, The Revolution That Will Permanently Transform America, with a foreword written by the 45th and 47th President of the United States. There is the cover. It is officially up and out on Amazon right now. It comes out March 24th. If you want to go to Amazon and pre-order it, that would be greatly appreciated. There's two things that I really wanted to address in this book. One is, for the first time in modern history, second time in our U.S. history, we have a president that's not sequential. And I make a very compelling argument based on a lot of interviews that not going back to back gives you time to think. I liken it like a team in a season. Like, once you get to face the opponent later in the season, you think about what we're going to do different. And for those reasons, I conclude that the people, the process, and the policies of Trump 2.0 are going to make permanent change. And so whether you're a Trump lover or a Trump hater, I think understanding why this is so different, what was done in the preparation leading up to the second term, is critical. So, like I said, I'm super excited about this book. It took a lot of research and a lot of conversations with folks, but I first of all, and again, big thank you to President Trump and to the team over there for getting this approved and out. So if you're looking for something to read in March, maybe a big Lenten read, nothing that says I'm going to get closer to God.
I just ordered it.
And reading Sean Spicer's book.
Dan, thank you.
There you go.
I haven't even ordered my own book. I
want to hear some of the color with your conversation with the president to get him to write your foreword.
Yeah.
You know what? This is what's going to, so I called him to talk about the book, and I said, hey, look, it's the same publisher that did Melania's book.
So you just call him. Did you text like, hey buddy, I'm going to give you a call, or is it just cold?
No, I called.
Okay. All right.
And it was actually one morning before, like I generally try to figure out the sweet spots when things aren't probably too nuts. And, he said, what's going on? We were catching up. And I said, by the way, I wanted to give you a heads up. I'm doing my fifth book. It's called Trump 2.0. Here's what it's doing. And honest to God, this just, this is why I wish people could get to know him a little bit more. But like, he goes, all right, Sean, I'd love to write the foreword for it. It's going to be a bestseller. I love what you're talking about. And he volunteered it. I was obviously going to ask him if to support it, and obviously wanted to know about it, but he graciously volunteered. And, again, the guy's a busy man. He has been so supportive of everything that I've done since I left the White House. And that's just, again, for all the talk about who he is or whatever, those of us who know him, he's been continuously supportive and generous. But it was literally a conversation. I didn't even ask for it. I obviously said, I'd love your support. He said, well, what if I wrote the foreword? It's going to be a bestseller. It'll be awesome. And and
that's pretty cool.
Hopefully he's right.
That's pretty cool. One last thing before we move on, Sean, as a fellow writer, what are your tips for writing a book? You've done this 5 times. I've done it once. I almost died. It was so much work. Do you have a routine, like you write after you run, or you have to have candy in your mouth?
Yeah. So let me start with the premise, because I learned this the hard way with the first book. This is a marketing exercise, right? Meaning that it's like a movie. You can kind of show a trailer, meaning like, here's a little clip on Amazon or whatever. You're getting people to buy in on something without reading it. And so part of what you're trying to do is market. Like, what is going to sell? What do people want to hear about? There's a lot of ideas that I've had where I've talked to the publisher and like, that's really interesting. I don't think anyone's going to care about that. I have these esoteric ideas about what people think about politics and, insights. And I'm sure there's 8 people that would find it fascinating in a college seminar somewhere.
It's true, Sean, because I was told originally when I pitched mine, which centered on Congress, no one cares about Congress. Go ahead. Sorry, continue.
But I've got a great publisher, and they get it. And then it's a little bit of a collaborative process where I came up with some ideas, and then I sat down with their team, and they were like, what about, like, they're really good about pulling strings, and they're like, what do you think about Maha? And I'm like, well, they're like, okay, go. And so we went through, to your point about the process, I would come up with an idea, and we would have these collaborative discussions, and we record them, and they were like, just talk for a little bit longer. And they would ask questions, and they'd be like, see, that's interesting. And I was like, really? I didn't think that. I thought that was obvious or whatever. So part of it was, I like working collaboratively with a team. And I've done that with every book, where what I think is obvious, or maybe sometimes what I think is really interesting, everyone's like, and they fall asleep. And then sometimes what I'll say something like, wait a second, go with that, bring it out more. So, we sketched it out, and then we just kept building and building and building. And then obviously the other thing is, you use a lot of primary source stuff. So between the interviews that people have done, the conversations that I've had with them, and said, what do you think about this premise? What do you think? And like, yeah, that's, so again, this idea of like why Trump 2 is different than Trump 1. I talked to Trump 1 people. I talked to Trump 2 people. I talked to people who served in both. And that's the key, is that, like, I honestly believe, like, whether you love Trump or hate him, you have to understand how fundamentally consequential not going back to back is, right? I mean, and it's like on everything. Like, do you really think that he would be redesigning the East Wing if January 20th had become January 21st? Like, you just keep going. The train keeps going down the track. The same chief of staff, the same press secretary, the same domestic policy advisor. But once you have a chance to really think, who are the players that I want on the field this time? Who are the ones that I want to keep off the field? What are the policies that I want to pursue? Where am I going to get attacked? Like, I don't know. I really got into this, like, whether I'm the person that nailed this on the head or not, I do believe that in 100 years, people are going to look back and say, because he didn't go back to back, he was able to do a heck of a lot more than he would have if he had been sequential in his term.
Well, we'll all have to read the book here. It sounds like it's going to be a good one.
Thank you. Congratulations, by the way. And I will pre-order it as soon as the show's done.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, I have some housekeeping, but first, I'm just going to sort of lay out our today's 5. We'll talk about President Trump drawing what looks like kind of a red line on Iran when it comes to hanging these protesters. We'll talk more about that. Another one. Fair, Dan. We'll talk more about what's going on in Minnesota. A couple of new videos circulating online. Tensions obviously ratcheting up there. The vice president and the secretary of state are going to be meeting with the Danes today. We'll talk about that and some stuff going on the Hill. The Senate 2026 map, a little bit of a look at the midterms and some of the races you should be watching and what's percolating there. And then this really fun story that I'm excited to talk about, the president's bromance with one and only Mamdani of New York, now apparently texting buddies. Really interesting stuff.
Maybe he'll write Mamdani's forward when Mamdani writes a book.
There you go. Amazing. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Just a little housekeeping note. Some people have asked in the comments about podcasting, like, can you listen to our show as a podcast? And the answer, guys, is yes. You can listen to us now on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and actually during the show, as you're listening, you should go to these sites, whichever one you use, and subscribe. Follow us, subscribe, listen there, because if you do that, it drives up our numbers, which then sort of gets us in front of more people. The more eyes on the show, the better we do. So if you can subscribe to us on our podcast platforms, that would be great. Again, Spotify.
It's completely tariff-free to do it.
Yes, absolutely. Great for a run. My mom was asking me, how do I listen when I'm driving? So there you go, right there. You don't want to watch, but you want to listen. You can do that there. So let's talk about the day book today. So the big item in Washington is actually the Senate vote on the Dems' war powers resolution ahead of basically hand-tying the president's action in Venezuela. This comes just a couple of days after the administration lost 5 Republicans. That was a procedural vote. And since then, the president has been doing a lot of whipping behind the scenes. He called and yelled at one of those defectors, Susan Collins of Maine. Apparently, there were some curse words involved. And it sounds like 2 of those Republicans, Josh Hawley of Missouri and Todd Young of Indiana, they are no longer saying how they're going to vote in our
He called Hawley too. He called Hawley, and apparently it was a pretty direct conversation.
Well, there's also this whole thing about what, the Republicans now using the Dem playbook. When Cruz tried to do this against Biden, they basically ruled it the way the parliamentarian ruled it was, hey, look, there's not active fighting, so therefore it's out of order. I think there could be a ruling of that nature as well, because it's not germane. There's no war going on. So the Republicans are utilizing the Dem playbook.
So we'll obviously be watching this. Well, a couple of other things going on the Hill. 8:30 a.m. The House Foreign Affairs Committee Democrats and Ranking Member Gregory Meeks are holding a special meeting on Venezuela. At 11 o'clock, Congressman Robin Kelly of Illinois is holding a press conference on articles of impeachment against the Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. I'm pretty sure this has like 50 Democratic.
54.
Yeah, I'd watch this. Yeah, this is starting to bubble up.
Here's the thing, though. When Democrats flip the House, guys, they're going to impeach the president again. Let's be honest.
I don't know about that. I really do not know about that.
But they're going to have so much to investigate.
Yep.
Like they're going to want to focus the attention on the president rather than Kristi Noem. This is just my prediction, guys. We'll see.
I don't know about that. Yep.
Okay. Well, 1 o'clock, Senator Lindsey Graham is holding a press conference on FDA abortion drug policies. At 1 p.m., Benny Thompson, a Democrat from Mississippi, and Ilhan Omar and other House Homeland Security Committee Democrats are doing a press conference on the tragedy with Renee Good. So we'll be following that. At 2 p.m., the president participates in a signing ceremony. And no, guys, I'm not sure. Does this happen today or tomorrow? It's going to happen at some point. But remember, Maria Corina Machado, the opposition leader is going to be meeting with the president here at some point. It sounds like Delcy Rodriguez is sending her own delegation. She's obviously Maduro's right hand. So there's going to be a little bit of lobbying on the president on that.
Smart move. Move.
Okay, so before we jump in, let's do a word from our sponsors, Sean.
Yeah, look, I've said this all along. I don't know how much more you can say it. I love dressing from head to toe in Cozy Earth, from the pajama tops to the bottoms, the joggers, the eye mask, the bubble blanket, the towels. I mean, I literally, no hand to God, last night, my mother-in-law texted me and was like, I love the stuff that you gave me at Christmas. I mean, just out of the blue, no prompting. But whether it's for yourself or somebody else, this is so super comfortable. Dan knows this. He's got a bunch of the stuff. They use the blanket as a family.
The blanket's fought over. One of the kids came running out of the room last night that it was missing, and another kid had taken it. And I was like, guys, we will simply order more bubble blankets.
We will get more bubble blankets.
You do not have to fight. Right, exactly.
Right.
But it got a little loud at one point last night.
If you live alone, get yourself one bubble blanket. If you have a family, use code HUDDLE for 20% off site-wide. Get yourself 2 bubble blankets. But I'm telling you, you cannot go wrong, whether it's the pants, the joggers, the shirts. It's honestly, I mean, like I said, I've got all of the above. And it was the big hit at Christmas this year. So go to CozyEarth.com, use code HUDDLE, 20% off site-wide. Some exclusions apply.
All right,
data rates may apply.
Thanks to Cozy Earth. All right, let's jump in. Let's talk about the president and his sort of latest hardline on Iran. So Iran is reportedly set to hang protesters today, very public executions. They're supposed to send a signal to people to sort of rein it in. But the president is sending them a warning. He's drawing this red line. And let's take a listen to an interview he gave yesterday with CBS Evening News. Element
We're hearing that they're going to start hanging protesters tomorrow. So it comes back to the question, have they crossed your red line or has the line moved?
I haven't heard about the hanging. If they hang them, you're going to see some things that I don't know what where you come from and what your thought process is, but you'll perhaps be very happy.
What do you mean by that?
We will take very strong action. If they do such a thing, we will take very strong action.
And this strong action you're talking about, what's the end game?
The end game is to win. I like winning.
How do you define that in Iran?
Well, let's define it in Venezuela. Let's define it with al-Baghdadi. He was wiped out. Let's define it with Soleimani. And let's define it in Iran, where he wiped out their Iran nuclear threat in a period of about
all right, let's jump out of this.
Minutes.
Sean, I'll be the first to admit that I'm not, a foreign policy expert, but I seem to recall that, President Obama drew this sort of red line regarding Syria and chemical weapons against their own people. And that happened, and we didn't do much. And he was criticized over and over again by Republicans for sort of setting out this, threat and not doing anything. Does the president, in saying, that he's going to push back hard if they hang protesters today, like, is he risking doing the same if he doesn't do something like a military strike, which he was sort of hinting at right there?
Yeah, the difference is he will. I mean, I don't think that there's any question. You hang people right now, whether the president's actually coming or not. I mean, I got to be honest with you. You said you didn't know much about foreign policy. Respectfully, I would argue you don't need to know much. If you start publicly hanging people, I got to believe the world has got to take action. And so when the president says it after what, I mean, and you saw the follow up, which is, Soleimani, al-Baghdadi, Maduro. If you want to see, the fourth version of the movie to know that he's serious, that's your mistake. So I think he has sent a very clear message to the Iranian regime that if you pull this off, you will face consequences. And there's no question in my mind, none, that he will follow through on that.
There has been a little bit of mixed signals, though, on this. I mean, the president did cancel his plans to have these talks, I guess, with Iranian officials recently. We just saw that clip of him, talking about winning, being, pointing to these other terror leaders and heads of regimes that have been killed or taken. There is Washington Post reporting that European officials say their countries were actually contacted by the Trump administration on Monday to share intelligence for targets in Iran. But at the same time, the president didn't take part in that national security conversation that happened at the White House yesterday. I think a lot of us were expecting he was going to do that. If he is not doing that, doesn't that suggest that a strike is not imminent, Sean, or am I misreading this?
No, they could bring it to him.
No, I mean, they probably, as I said before, I mean, a lot of times you'll present, 5 COAs. Here's the options. It's very possible that Susie Wiles or Marco Rubio as the national security advisor / secretary of state / archivist / offensive coordinator for the Miami Dolphins could say, Mr. President, we met. There's consensus on COA 3. Here's what we believe you should do. Do you agree?
I think
and give him a decision memo.
I think the challenge for Trump is what he just said, which is I like winning. I don't know what winning is. I mean, winning would basically be you depose of the government and put in a more stable government. But boy, that's a stretch because as Sean said, like, then, if not them, then who? Is it baked? Are you ready to, or somebody ready to provide the protection for them? So I am really curious, because I agree with Sean at this point. It's not just, he said, if you hang them, don't forget a week or two ago, he said, if you harm the protesters. Well, now the question is how many thousands of people have they killed? So now you're talking about how they're killing people. It may be, gruesome if they show a hanging, but shooting someone in the back of the head is not much different. So I think at this point, he pretty much has to do something. But the question is, what is the result that we're trying to achieve? If it's some cyber attacks, okay, I don't think the government will collapse then.
Yeah, we should be checking online to see if this hanging has taken place yet, or if they sort of pull it back because of the president's threat.
Got it. I mean, honestly, I cannot think of a dumber move.
Yeah,
publicly hanging people after the president of the United States has told you not to do it. I just.
Dan, you mentioned the president talking about winning when it comes to foreign policy issues. You flagged this story for us in our group text. Maduro's ouster is reportedly forcing Beijing into a high-stakes recalculation of its ambitions in this region. They're thinking twice about whether they want to get involved in our Western Hemisphere, in our backyard. This is exactly what the president wanted to do. Would you say he's vindicated in this?
Yes, yes and no, right? Because the number of reasons stated for going into Venezuela, it was initially drugs, then it was oil, and what has kind of always been the least discussed publicly rationale is this, kind of more broader strategic theory of cleaning up our backyard, of kicking China out. Look, he does deserve credit for this. For the last 20 years, China has gone around the world, as I mentioned yesterday, with these belts and suspenders projects of building airports, rebuilding ports in exchange for kind of favored nation status when it comes to things like raw materials. They have a huge military base in Argentina in the Patagonia Mountains for satellites. And for us to say, hey, you guys have got to get out of our backyard, we're not okay with this. Trump does deserve credit for that, and Venezuela is part of that. What we don't know is what ultimately happens in Venezuela and what is the cost to the United States. That is a huge, outstanding question. But yes, on the kind of macro issue of China, Trump does deserve credit for doing what a lot of people have talked about, but not done for the last 20, 30 years.
Let's move to Minnesota. So more videos are emerging of these, tense standoffs between ICE officials and U.S. citizens. Let's take a look at two of these. The first we have is, I believe it's an overrun hotel, right, Sean, where ICE officials are staying.
Yep.
And the second one is a woman being dragged from her car. Let's take a look. So a lot of these images are starting to have an impact on public perception. We're looking at some polls, I believe it was YouGov, that showed 28% of Americans think ICE was justified in shooting Renee Good. That's a pretty small number, guys. But 53% think the ICE agent who shot her should be criminally charged. 18% are not sure. And the president, it looks like, even has lost one of his top allies from 2024, Joe Rogan. Let's play this, and then we're going to go to Sean here after this.
Militarized people in the streets just roaming around, snatching people up, many of which turn out to actually be U.S. citizens that just don't have their papers on them. Are we really going to be the Gestapo? Where's your papers? Is that what we've come to?
Sean, you talked, I think it was yesterday, about how images like this, the coverage in particular, matters to the president. Do you know if they've done internal polling on this yet, what they're seeing on this, and how do they both try to soften their message right now to make sure they don't see a huge polling slide, but also support ICE officers?
Yeah. So, I mean, I do know that there are people who do polling and sentiment scraping that share those data points with the White House. How much they've gotten so far, I know. For example, I had Brent Buchanan on the other day, on Monday, from Signal, and he shared that was last night. And there's a lot of good stuff in there. Like, generally speaking, especially among and again, there's two breakdown here. There's the general public, and then there's the MAGA base, and I think the base is still largely with him. I would say a couple things about the current situation, though. Number one, as I've said previously, if you read and saw the left-wing legacy media coverage of this, you probably would come away with a pretty negative view of ICE as well. And that's neither here nor there. That's a fact, meaning it is what it is. You have to deal with it because there's only so much social media and independent media can do.
So how do they deal with it?
But when you do, and let me just make one other point about the video, and then because this goes to my fact thing, and then I'll get to the political piece. That woman, just to be clear, and again on that video, well, there's two things. One is you've got vandalism, destruction happening in Minneapolis. No coverage of that. That's number one. It's and no one on the left talking about how that's wrong and it's got to get condemned. That woman, again, just like Renee Good. Not saying that, someone deserves anything. But again, that car was not parked on the side of the street. She was not standing waving a sign. She wasn't yelling at ICE agents. She took her car and impeded an operation. And this is where, again, I just don't understand. You have a right to protest. You have a right to have your voice heard in this country. You do not have a right to impede a lawful, legal operation. Full stop. And when she did that, she intentionally put herself in the middle of that and tried to obstruct an operation. Okay, again, not going to get covered. But this gets back to the perception and the politics of this.
Wait,
when
before
you
we
lose
talk
Joe
about
Rogan, what?
I just want to get Dan's response to that on the video real quick, and then we'll go back to the political piece. Dan, you just saw these videos. What's your?
Yeah, I mean, look, Sean is right that you can't vandalize hotels because ICE is you can't vandalize anything, but targeting hotels. We talked about the Hilton thing last week where they did, initially denied the ICE agents to staying there. And the woman in that video protesting, as Sean said, was putting her car in the middle of ICE marching down the street. I think the problem is images and videos are so powerful. Like we just talked about hanging. If there is a video of a public hanging, it shocks the conscious, right? I always remember like in the NFL when Ray Rice was accused of domestic violence, it didn't really get much coverage. When the elevator video of him striking the woman emerged, everybody was like, whoa, that is, violent and awful. I think these videos, the Trump White House is losing control of the narrative, because when you have people in these neighborhoods getting dragged out of their cars, the look of fear on that woman's face, and you can give all the reasons that she shouldn't have been there, and they're right, or doing what she was doing. I think the MAGA loves it. Democrats hate it. I think the middle says this is excessive and extreme, and I don't like it.
Can I make one point, though, that I think is so interesting? I showed this video the other day on my show of a woman standing in front of an ICE SUV, holding it, trying to hold it back, running backwards, holding it back. I cannot imagine if my kid came home and said, yeah, Dad, I was protesting. And okay, great. What were you protesting? No. I stood in the middle of a street in front of a car. I'd smack him in the head and say, get inside. Like, what do you do? The idea of thinking to yourself, whether you're running in front of a car or driving your car into an operation, what do you think is going to happen? And I'm being honest with you. I just don't get the mentality of somebody who thinks I'm going to put myself in the middle of an operation and I think things are probably going to turn out okay. What is wrong with you mentally?
Well, I think, Sean, the one thing that I think, and the Joe Rogan piece kind of gets to this, which is for the last 6 months, if you listen to Democrats and we're on Blue Sky, which I know you are, what you would hear is this common refrain that innocent people are being stopped in their cars and pulled out of their cars, that there is no accountability in this kind of horror that ICE is roaming around doing things that are illegal. That's their telling. I'm not saying,
okay.
What you're now seeing. So to Democrats, to a lot of these people, they think like, where is the media covering this? Why isn't this getting more attention? And so you're right. They are now literally, going out there with videos. I mean, the text threads of these groups saying they are going to basically live stream ICE, right? If the media won't cover it, we talked about the guy on the right going to Minnesota and knocking on childcare doors. This is the left's version of it. But it's going to an extreme. I agree with you. But even Joe Rogan and people are starting to say, what are we doing as a country?
Okay. But Dan, I guess what I'm getting at is, first of all, I understand the perspective. There is, to say the media, not you, but for anyone on the left to claim the media is not covering this is insane. CNN's nonstop. The Today Show's led with it every day. The Washington
Because
Post,
people have videos. That's what they're covering is the videos. They're not going out and seeing.
Here they are. There's a woman from the Today Show that's been out there every single morning. Like, yes, they're using that in their packages, but they're there on the ground. They didn't cover a damn. Not one reporter went to Minneapolis to cover the fraud. Not one. They didn't even cover it. Never mind. Okay, name a correspondent that was there.
The New York Times broke the whole story.
That's okay. That's a one print story. Not one television camera except for News Nation was there.
Let me
But hold on. I just want to clear one thing up that Dan said. Like, I get the frustration. They're pissed about ICE. But in what world do you think standing in front of a building or a car is unacceptable? And then why do you think that vandalizing, like, to me, this is Black Lives Matter 2.0. What's going on? Where's the Dems that suddenly say that we peacefully protest, can't do this? Do you think the vandalism just happened out of nowhere? Do you think that car put itself in the middle of the road? No.
I think the broader problem is it is this sense which you saw in 2020, and I think Trump paid a price for it, that things are spiraling out of control. And that, if you're the incumbent, that's not good.
But that's, so first of all, again, I get that. I will see the perception issue, right? The reason that you're losing Joe Rogan. But it's sort of like, I watched Jacob Fry answer this question, the mayor of Minneapolis, and he was asked, do you think it's okay? And his answer was, things are spiraling. It's like, no. You
I
can't
agree.
just jump to the conclusion and say the meal sucked. That's why I ran out of the restaurant. Like, you don't get to just do things because of some conclusion that you want to draw.
Yep.
And the bottom line is that their actions are illegal, and they can't just do what they want because of it's in pursuit of some kind of greater good. But to just put this full circle, I do think that at the end of the day, as I've been saying, it doesn't matter. Like, I get it. The media has been complicit in this. It's horrible. Like, the people are breaking the law on the left, but you do face political realities. And the reality is right now, it doesn't look good.
We got to move on. I wanted to play some sound here because we are starting to see the president's sort of tone shift on this as they're obviously watching these videos go viral and the polling. I'm going to move on and not play it. But basically what he said was that this woman, could have been a great person at one point, but she did some, quote, tough things. Just a very different sort of tone than we've seen from some folks in the administration who called her, domestic terrorist. And he said, she could have been a good person, but she did some tough things and sort of had, again, that softer tone. And one other thing I want to mention, because Dan, you brought up live streaming ICE. Congressman Richie Torres, a Democrat from New York, is apparently introducing a bill that requires ICE officers to wear QR codes. So people can snap photos of them, find out who they are, and a bunch of information about
That's
it. Again, this
insane.
is not going to go through,
No.
but it just,
No,
again, underscores the Democrats leaning into the defund.
Can I just extend this for one
Well,
second?
that's two different things.
Look,
Yeah.
let's play this out for 1 second. I think that every IRS agent, every IRS official should have to have a QR code on them and have their name exposed. Do you think that? I mean, just think about how stupid you would think that would be, right? I mean, these same people who have been champions of public employees and public unions somehow, because they don't like ICE now, want to dox them. We have entered such a crazy world. Whether you like ICE or not, they are doing their job as prescribed by Congress.
Well, I think where the party would be wise to focus this energy, right, is I do think there is something to the fact that ICE has hired all these people and they are probably not trained to confront what they are confronting, right? Because traditionally police, local police, state police would provide the protection to federal officials. Well, in these blue areas, that is not happening, which is their right. We can say it's crazy, but it is their right. So I think the party focusing on things like body cameras, which police do wear, and it helps to protect the police from allegations that they handled things inappropriately, talking about the need for further training for the 80,000 or whatever it is, new officials. That is where you seem more reasonable. QR codes, to Sean's point, is total insanity. Yeah. This idea of taking masks off, like we don't ask DEA agents going in to bust up drug rings in, the Baja Peninsula to have their faces shown. I mean, it's that I get. It's going to be a challenge for Jeffries and Schumer to rein the party in and not be unreasonable.
Yeah, we'll be talking a lot about that in the coming days. Let's move to Greenland. So the vice president and Marco Rubio today are going to be talking to the Danes. The foreign ministers of Denmark and Greenland are here. And that's obviously coming as the president continues to sound very bullish about Greenland still. There are some signs that the president, might actually get what he wants on this. Politico Europe is reporting that EU leaders are currently working to quickly put together some sort of offering for the president right now, basically a way for him to claim victory without totally crushing NATO. And it sounds like it would not only include some sort of bolstered presence, military presence there, but concessions on mineral extraction. Dan, let's start with you. Do you think the president, what do you think is the likelihood that the president takes a deal like that versus holding out much longer for something better months from now?
I think this is why I asked yesterday, what is victory? I think that is right. I think he will ultimately look. The problem is he has no support on Capitol Hill and he has no support in Greenland to buy it or take it by force. So the question then is, what is that next step? Because there is a bill that I think if it were to come up, which is to propose cutting off any funds to attack or take a NATO ally. So that obviously would be Greenland without saying it. So I think they will cut a deal. I think, as you say, it will expand the military footprint. Again, we're already there, and it will give them some sort of like first right of refusal on mineral extraction. But I don't know how you buy a country that's not for sale. And I don't know how you take over the country militarily when 90% of your own country, 90% of your own Congress, and basically everyone else in the world is against it.
You mentioned this bill, moderate Democrat Jean Shaheen, who's the ranking Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. She's joined up with Lisa Murkowski on this bill, basically blocking money from any activity against a NATO member. I kind of just think it's cute because, you know, the president has definitely shown he doesn't care about the appropriations process and what, you know, lawmakers say on this issue, which, you know, you can dispute because obviously they do have power under the Constitution. They have the power of the purse and they should, but he's just ignoring them. So I guess my brain automatically is like, okay, they're going to introduce this, but like, even if they try to tie his hands, he may not even listen, right? Regardless, Sean.
This is stupid. And I say this because our country has a history of buying properties, of going out there and expanding our footprint for national security and other reasons. And so to tie the president's hands when you know
John, those other deals, the counterparty has been willing to sell.
And maybe we get to that point. But this is like, I guess that I've said this from the beginning. So just to be clear, this is part of a bigger deal. We just said when they sit down, what's going to happen? Well, we imagine there's going to be a deal. So why tie the president's hands right before we all can admit that there's probably going to be some kind of a deal? That's it. It actually hurts us when you tie the president's hands behind his back as we go in and sit down and say, here's the best thing. If the Danes know that ultimately the Congress is going to try to stop him, then that gives them some leverage going into this. The bottom line, the president said this the other day, whether it's Russia or China, somebody's going to make a play for this. And everybody better open their eyes and wake up and realize that's going to happen. And so either we increase our relationship, our footprint, whatever you want, but we better have a better strengthened relationship with that area sooner rather than later, or we're going to pay the price for it.
So you don't think we have a good relationship with NATO?
No, I think there's a difference between sitting around and having when they wouldn't even pay the 2% for decades on end. They're not in a position to defend their own interests.
But we are. But we're in the position to. We're
yeah, so that's right. So we keep footing the bill. Why? I mean, again, this gets back to why
But Sean, now we're talking about a $900 billion offer to purchase something. That's footing the bill.
Right, but then we actually own it. There's a difference. We get something in return for it as opposed to just being the bill payer.
But we get
You're going to go to dinner. No one walks in and says, "Hey, I'll pay the bill. You guys go eat. We'll stay at home and send you Venmo you the money."
Yeah, I mean, it's totally. This is one of those things that it's insane. But I think he'll get something because they don't want to humiliate him.
Yeah.
Or because they realize the truth, the reality.
Let's move to the Senate, and we'll move quickly through this because we still have 2 more segments and we want to get to questions, of course. All the DC newsletters this morning had interviews with Chuck Schumer, who is taking this big victory lap right now over his recruitment success in terms of the midterms and finding Democrats to run that he thinks can actually win. He's talking about in North Carolina, Governor Roy Cooper, in Maine, Janet Mills, Senator Sherrod Brown in Ohio, and Mary Patola in Alaska. I guess let's just start with this, Dan. Is this a premature victory lap, given that they have to net 4 seats in the midterms to flip the chamber? But even though they have these 4 top recruits, there's a lot of other states they got to watch out for. You know, Michigan defending there, Georgia defending there. Like, it's a little premature for him to be.
No, not at all. Like, no. And by the way, we were texting about this during the day yesterday before all the tip sheets. They must have been listening to our text. No, I mean, look, I give Chuck Schumer credit because at the start of 2025, people said there's absolutely no way Democrats can win the Senate back. It is still unlikely. If you had to bet, I'd bet the Republicans maintain it. But we would all agree that if everything broke the Democrats' way, the way it did in 2006, when they needed 6 seats, there is now a path. It's a tall path. right? Alaska's like our New Jersey for Republicans. We've
Right.
talked about candidates.
Oh, you've won there though. Pelota won.
Yeah, Mark Bagich did, but still, like, it's hard. So I think the first thing you have to do is give people hope and to believe. And Schumer has accomplished that today. Politics could change. To me, the big thing now is money, because in North Carolina, in Georgia, in Ohio, our candidates are really well funded. The DSCC is well funded. The big problem is the Trump political operation is sitting on a pile, mountains of cash, hundreds of millions of dollars. And the RNC versus the DNC has like a 10-to-1 advantage. So now with the party, then this is why that map matters. They can go to donors and say, we got a chance. And by the way, if we win the House and the Senate, you, and I'm going to just use it as if, for instance, Meta and others better be hedged. And that fear to the business community is just enough to let you start to play ball.
Sean, you want to jump in here? Do you think,
I largely
are you
concur.
more worried about the Senate than you started?
Yeah, I am. And I think Dan's right. I mean, look, what Schumer's doing is basically a shot over the bow of donors. He's absolutely right.
Yep.
And this is them saying, hey, we got a path. I want to show you that path, whether you believe it or not. There's a path. And if I'm right and you're wrong, you better not be on the wrong side of this. And that's and look, I think that it's not crazy either. Like, you're not hearing me push back and say, oh my God, there's no way that you can win Maine or North Carolina. I think that ultimately Mike Whatley pulls it out, but Roy Cooper's numbers, $9.5 million, not bad. He was governor. Whatley's, was chair of the RNC and chair of the party. He's a solid guy, but there's no question Roy Cooper's formidable. Susan Collins has always had tough races. She pulls them out. She is very connected to Maine, but that doesn't mean you can't, it's not going to be tough. So I think you look at Michigan, it's a hold for Democrats. There's no question. I mean, they're fighting it out in a primary, but Michigan is almost becoming our New Jersey in a way where we think we can pick it up. I just don't see it there.
Sean, can I ask you that this is like off the board a little bit, but both of you. So it's reported that Trump is not going to endorse in Texas anytime soon.
Yeah.
Do you, is Cornyn still the favorite in Texas?
I think the interesting thing to me, the X factor is Wesley Hunt, right? He jumped in. I still don't get that. And so Paxton, look, Ken Paxton has been a stalwart, a huge supporter of the president. And I get the president saying, you know what, that's actually a win for Ken Paxton to not endorse.
Totally.
So I believe that, the X factor, like I said, is Wesley Hunt, because who is he pulling more from? I got to think he takes a little bit more. He hurts Paxton's chances, I think, because he divides up the anti-Cornyn vote. I do think, depending on who, I think this idea that we can't win without Cornyn is a little bit overblown. But I do think it's concerning. Yeah. But I think the president's making the right play. Don't get involved in this. There's no win. You'll get your base really pissed off. The people who back Paxton are a lot of your base. And so there's no reason to.
Let's do one fun thing. So the president is apparently text buddies with Mamdani. Does this surprise you at all, Sean? Or is this like typical President Trump?
No, I think it's actually the funny part is, if you think of like the MO, Trump will talk to anybody. He brought in Bill Maher, right? I mean, to sit down with him after. I mean, like, Trump actually has a really he sat down with Tony Dopekill the other day. Jesus, the New York Times. Like, this guy will talk to anybody. That's the thing that is so that no one wants to ever talk about in the media. That he'll talk to as much as he bashes a lot of folks, he'll talk to anybody. He'll take his message anywhere. It's the opposite. You had Mamdani. Mamdani's probably more embarrassed that he got caught on a text chain with Trump than vice versa. And I think Mamdani's got to answer to his base more than Trump's got to answer to his. You don't hear me getting like all wound up because, I mean, I'd rather he didn't, but that's just because I'm a bitter Irish leprechaun. I think Trump's view is, I'm going to sell my message everywhere and I'm going to get you on board. Mamdani's the guy who said that Trump's evil and all this stuff. So I think he's got a little bit more explaining to do than Donald Trump.
It's so fascinating. Dan, what's your take on this?
I actually think that to some extent, I think Trump was a little spooked by November. I do. I think, look at what he's doing on affordability. Look at all these progressive things. You go back to that meeting in the White House when he kind of wanted to bask in the glow of the Mamdani affordability, halo. Now, by all accounts, Trump is reaching out to Mamdani. I actually kind of agree with you a little bit, Sean. The left will hate that more than the right will hate, Trump speaking to him. But I think Trump, being an excellent political athlete and a student of pop culture, is trying to understand the Mamdani kind of MO and why he is so successful. And I think being close to your enemy, so to speak, and trying to get in his head and talk to him and hear from him, I think Trump is a little spooked about all. Look, he's always said.
I actually don't think I think he's fascinated. I think he loves the idea of, because Mamdani went in and said, whatever, a third of my voters are your voters. And I think he kind of goes, great.
But Sean, do you think about this though? Trump is obsessed with winning on the economy. Like, at the end of the day, he wants to say it's the golden age. It's what he talked about in his first term. I think he's a little like, as a marketer, I'm stuck. It's going to be good, he believes. He very well may be right, but it's not right now, and he knows it. And so he's trying to figure out, how do I hug all this energy out there that's building up? Because I don't want to be on the wrong side and be seen as a loser. I do.
So I don't.
By the way, good for him. It's like Bill Clinton.
I think that I think that he and his team do believe. I've talked. They look at a lot of these statistics. It's funny. I was watching the Today Show this morning, and they're like, Trump says that the inflation has gone down, yet it's virtually where it was. No, it was at 3.0 when he entered. It's 2.7 now. That's down. Maybe the folks at the Today Show need to take a math class, but 2.7 is less than 3.0. That's a fact. Again, this is where we are as a country. When the Today Show says it's unchanged, it's not unchanged. That's lower. If it was more, they'd say Trump lied. They won't give him credit. It's just.
Well, but really, Sean, they're also, the problem that they have still is, as the people in Bloomberg and other places point out, is while some things are down, other things are very much up. And that is their challenge. And they know it.
Look, and the bottom line, beyond everything, going back to the perception argument, is that if people don't feel it, it doesn't matter. This is George Bush back in 92, where people hadn't felt the resurgence of the economy yet. And Bush, I think, was frankly ahead of the curve in reading the statistics and not the mood of the electorate. I do think that Trump is right, because he's seeing where the puck is going. And frankly, as I said before, you got to bet that's, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. If you're not right, then you're screwed anyway. So you might as well just say it, because it's either you're going to be right and you'll be rewarded for it, or you're going to get screwed. I think you might as well just take it.
I will say, though, to your point, because we talked about it in the fall, if you listen to earnings reports of companies in the fall, they were very cautious and nervous about tariffs and kind of all of this uncertainty. You listen to earnings calls now that are happening, people are getting really bullish again.
Yes.
And the street isn't always right, but sentiment in the business community seems to be, we are picking up steam, and it could be very strong the next year or two.
Two other quick points.
Just to be honest about it. Yep.
Yeah, I totally agree. And frankly, I think you have to be right politically. I will say, to your populist point, Trump came out, or Thune came out based on Trump's tweet and said, we're going to give Durbin Marshall a vote, which is this I won't use the word I use, but that's gather
the interchange rate that you can charge on credit
cards.
Well,
no, but effectively it would mean the end of points. So I hoard my airline points, my hotel points, and Trump just gave oxygen to this populist thing. I do think, secondly, this notion that people like Mamdani and Newsom, who right, left reporters, just text the president of the United States. We talked about my book at the beginning. You just pick up the phone and you call the guy. This is so, to me, like Biden couldn't take a call from his family members, and it was hidden from his cabinet. And here's Trump picking up the phone, talking to anybody who texts or calls him. I think that's amazing. The last thing I would just say is this.
Fascinating.
I have been fascinated by this. We talked about Mamdani real quick. I've had Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen on the show. As I mentioned, Brent Buchanan from Signal on the show. There is one thread that people have to understand that's very different now politically. It used to be that you would talk about my base, your base, What I think the new dynamic is there is still your base, my base, but the voters in the last two cycles, especially last cycle, Hispanics, young men, blacks, black men in particular, they're like, tell me what you've done for me lately. This idea, and we may pay the price for it Republican-wise in terms of some of our redistricting. Hispanics basically said, we'll give you a try, but prove it. They want disruption. These people hate the system. They think it's broken, rightly so, especially young voters. And they don't want to, they're not there to join a political party. They're like, the system sucks. The processes suck. All healthcare sucks. The government, so talk to me about how you're fixing it. And that's where Trump's got his finger on this, which is people are so fed up with the system. They're not looking for a Republican solution or a conservative solution or a liberal. That's why there's such crossover between Mamdani and Trump. The one common thread between the two of them was they both said the system sucks and I'll do something about it.
Trump's problem is he's underwater 3-1 with those people now. But I hear you. You're right.
But why, Dan? And that's why what he's doing is, guess what? I'll cap credit cards because it sucks. Yeah. I'll do this with the healthcare system because it sucks. He's getting that message back.
Yeah, and Hill Republicans don't love a lot of those new ideas.
That's why. But that's the disconnect, Rachel.
Newsletter, if you subscribe to it yesterday,
that's the problem. Is that traditional conservatives say this isn't a conservative issue, and Trump's like, screw it. This is what's going to get us back.
Yeah, but like the fact that they are on different pages on the defining issue of the midterms is bananas. Bananas. Someone needs to put, the president and the speaker in the same room with their political teams and come up with a real game plan here. Okay, let's take some questions. We'll take a few from Twitter first. Here we go. Here's one. Address why no one is questioning why local law enforcement isn't de-escalating ICE arrests by being present where the mobs are. I think, Sean, you mentioned something about this in our text thread yesterday. Why aren't they turning over people who are in custody? Why are they making the process more painful than it should be, and it's being completely ignored in the media?
I'm not
political leadership.
Fully what's being said there. I think.
Well, I think what I read that as why isn't like local, in this case Minneapolis police, aiding the ICE doing their operation, doing the crowd control piece, doing the stopping people from impeding a law enforcement operation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, this goes to. These blue cities don't want ICE there.
Yes.
I mean, that is at the end of the day. I mean, this goes back to the, civil rights era when local southern states didn't want the National Guard in there. It is their right, this local police and state, to not support it. I agree with you. You're making the situation worse by not supporting it because police are trained for crowd control. Police are trained to deal with protesters the way the average ICE agent is not. So in an ideal world, they would work together and cooperate. You've seen it in some areas like the mayor of San Francisco and even in New York, where they're much more quiet about this. But some of these areas are very public and in their defiance. It's just part of this, like both sides amping it up.
And not only are they not sort of helping and de-escalate, like some of these cities have said recently that they're going to do like investigations into some of these ICE officials, right? Like, I feel like it's not just not helping.
I mean, there's a pressure to arrest people and there's a pressure to investigate. And look, this goes to the fact that Sean has said it the last few days. Ideally, the administration would launch their own investigation because it's kind of part of standard protocol and it's good to be transparent and accountable. But the administration doesn't want to give an inch. And these, the blue base is screaming, do something. And these elected officials are getting more extreme with their ideas.
Yeah. Let's take another question. China is reporting a record trade surplus for 2025, despite less imports going to the U.S. Can we believe them?
I mean, Chinese statistics are what they are. I mean, no one knows, but I do think they're dumping goods all over the world. I mean, their economy would collapse if they don't export.
Yeah, and also it's a good question because you don't know what to believe, but also there's a whole issue about a lot of companies pre-ordered stuff ahead of tariffs. Like there was a massive amount that was ordered in September in particular ahead of when people thought tariffs were coming into place. I don't know. It's a great question, but I do think that even if true, I don't think it's sustainable because I think there's an obvious reason why it was done.
Let's take some questions from the comments. See what we have here. Why do we keep trying to fix the Middle East? It's been around much longer than the US and it's been kind of a mess. It is now for that long. Let's see. And it's been the kind of mess it is now for that long. Who wants to take this one?
I think there's two reasons. One is, and they're the same, national security. Like if we either between nuclear weapons and terrorism, you either fight it over there or you fight it here.
There's also the oil, right?
I was going to say, I think it's a great question. And we didn't mention this, but it's being reported that a lot of those Middle Eastern governments are asking us to not get involved in Iran. Some of that's probably local, right? If there are protests in Saudi Arabia and other places and the Saudis do what they think they have to do, they sure don't want the precedent that if they kill protesters, the United States comes in with their, military. Look, the MAGA movement was successful, has been successful for a reason. I think the average American does say, what is our real interest there? And, for Trump, it's become about deals, business deals, money, capital into the United States, working with these regimes. I get the need or the desire to help Israel. They're our ally, they're our friend. But investing capital, either, physical or monetary in that region is a tough sell to the American people. It is.
Let's take another one. Question: could Trump's red line on Iran become what Obama's? Oh, there you go. Obama's Syria red line became. We sort of talked about this in the conversation. It sounds like Sean is saying no because he won't make a promise or a threat that he does not follow through on. So
I'll say this about Trump: he's a marketer. He's an image and optics guy. He just will not let that go.
Yeah, they'll do something. They'll definitely do something. Okay, let's do another one. Okay, could the feds bring in temporary federal judge? Could the feds bring in a temporary federal judge into Minnesota, charge the protesters with federal crimes, and lock up the paid professional agitators for 30, 60 days and break the protests? Gosh, can you imagine the blowback? I mean, if the administration did that, that would really escalate things even more than now.
You know what? This gets back to this whole issue of immigration. If you break the law, you should be punished. And I believe one of the big issues that I thought was a real, it's like Black Lives Matter stuff. If you commit vandalism, if you obstruct a police investigation, arrest them, give them a police record. I don't know why this is controversial. This is why they do what they do, because there's no consequences. So my answer is arrest them.
Well, I think there's two things. One, despite this idea that these are all paid agitators, they're not. I mean, there may be some paid agitators, but a lot of this is rank and file people, angry and outraged. And I have friends, I have family that are, go and they march and they want to get involved. And it is just, it is outrage. And so one, it's not all. Two, I mean, look, it's an interesting thing, but to Rachel's point, you are amping it up.
I mean, it's one thing if obviously, if they're, disturbing and infringing on ICE operations, et cetera, putting up roadblocks there. Sure. I mean, you can't interfere with law enforcement. People can be arrested and they have the right to arrest them. But just rounding up, even if you think they're paid protesters, I mean.
Just to be clear. Yeah. I think there's a difference between standing. I don't care if you're paid or unpaid. You want to stand on the sidewalk and yell.
Yeah, and hold a sign and that sort of thing. Yeah.
You get in the middle of the road, arrest.
That's different.
Well, but different. I mean, guys, I got to say it because on the left, it's everywhere. When people walked into the Capitol, once the windows were smashed and the doors were kicked in, they were just, they're just there. You shouldn't get everybody. I mean, in this modern era, there has been a difference between kind of the lead figures and, rank and file people.
Guys, that's all we have time for. We're at 9:30. We'll be back tomorrow, 8:30. Sean, what do you got coming up on your show today?
A two for tonight. We've got Senator Eric Schmidt of Missouri. A lot to break down with him. And then Kat Kamek of Florida as well. So we're going to really dig into a lot of the protests, the funding issues, defunding the price, the Supreme Court case yesterday. We didn't even talk about that. The transgender case yesterday, where that thing's headed. So many things, so little time, only one show. We'll cover it all tonight at 6.
Missouri delegation's an interesting one, right?
Well, I'm going to ask you about Eric Burleson's RSU proposal. You might as well, right?
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
good.
Well, and I'm thinking Josh Hawley too. Like, yep,
Oh
okay.
yeah, that's right. The president's
Thank you for that question, Dan. I'm adding that now.
Write it down.
The
What time's
Democrats are
vote?
there
What
for you.
time's the vote?
Yep.
Okay, guys. Well, we'll be back tomorrow morning again at 8:30. In the meantime, go to the dchuddle.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to the Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Find us there and subscribe to us there as well. All these things really help us in terms of driving up our numbers and getting more people to watch our show. So we really appreciate all the help with that. And we will see you tomorrow.
Bye.